All right, everybody. Good evening. Let's all come on in and grab a seat, and we will get rolling tonight. Good news, the AC is working in here. Praise be. Still not working in the office, but I guess that's going to be fixed tomorrow, so be praying about that. Mike offered to leave it broken so that we could start hosting hot yoga in the office, but nobody signed up, so I think we'll fix it. No, it's been a great week so far. I hope it's been a great week for you guys as well. To all the kids, welcome back to school. Hope everybody had a good first day today. We are going to get started tonight with our usual, where we are going to have some prayer requests and some announcement. If you haven't gotten a news sheet, I may make sure you get one tonight. I'm not going to be going over everything on here. As we like to remind everybody, Courtney puts awful lot of work into these every week, and don't let that be a waste to you, because there's a lot on here that needs to be prayed for, and you need to be made aware of that we're not going to be mentioning tonight. But we are also going to have a word of prayer after that, and then following that, we'll be dismissed to our classes in song by Brother Howard. Let's go ahead and do some announcements, and then we'll go into prayer requests. Our ladies' class is back on tonight, correct? Okay, great. So that will be in the small auditorium, ladies. I know you guys have been looking forward to that class resuming. Well, tonight's the night, and I know you will enjoy it. Of course, we have the Sunday night after church. We have a New Root celebration for Caleb, Courtney, and Piper. They are now into their new house. They're all moved in. They have hot water, which is great. But it is a happy time over there, and we want to celebrate with them and give God the glory. So if you are going to be there on Sunday night, a quick reminder, there will be a money tree. How many of you know what a money tree is? Remember what a money tree is? Okay, many of you. Maybe some of the kids don't know. I was trying to think, when was the last time I was at a Church of Christ function that had a money tree? I'm going to say it was in the 90s. It's been a long time, but hey, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. So if you want to bring something to pin on that money tree to help them out as they begin their new life and their new home, I'm sure that will be much appreciated. We also have a Ladies' Day coming up. For Ladies' Day at the Church of Christ at Horn Lake and Levi on Saturday. That's this Saturday. There's a sign-up sheet on the bulletin board if you would like to attend. And also there's a sign-up sheet for the Hope Works Breakfast as well, if you would like to help participate in that. We'll be hosting it on August 11th. And the 39ers luncheon, we had to, unfortunately, last minute postpone last month. So we are making sure to have it this month. It'll be on August 21st at noon in the small auditorium, so please keep that in mind. As far as prayer requests are concerned, we want to continue to pray for Reuben and Sandra, as Reuben is still continuing to battle his illness. He is home now. We're very happy to hear that. So let's make sure that we're praying for Reuben continually. Laura DeLuca, who was, I believe, a member here a long time ago, quite a long time ago. She has a variety of health concerns going on right now, a lot of things that are not looking very good. She is at home on hospice. Her cancer is pretty widespread. So, but you know what? Nothing's impossible with God. So let's continue to pray for God's grace and mercy and healing in Laura's life. We also had an anonymous prayer request. We had a few anonymous prayer requests come in on Sunday, asking for prayer, saying that they are repenting of their sins. Of course, we're going to be praying for that. God, we don't need to know who that is. God knows who it is. Another one came in repenting of being so quick to anger with their children and giving into the lusts of the world. And of course, we talked a lot this last Sunday on stopping sin before it starts. Fixing this before we fix this. So we've got some brothers and sisters someone who is asking for help in that struggle, so let's be praying for them. Marie Humphrey also let us know that she is struggling with worry and asking for prayers. April Thomas came forward saying that she is struggling with selfishness. We're very sorry to hear that. We're going to pray for our sister tonight. And Sandy Wallace came forward saying she is struggling also with the sin of worry. I believe we have a God of healing. And I know we have a God that is mighty to save. So let's make sure that we're praying for our brothers and sisters as they continue to struggle against the sin of this world. So let's have a word of prayer, and then we will turn it over to Brother Howard for a few songs. Will you join me? Mighty God, Holy Father, Lord, we thank you that you have brought us here tonight. And we ask that you bless us in our worship, in our study. We ask that you deepen our understanding of your word and draw us closer in relationship to you through it. God, I ask that you be with all those that we have mentioned tonight. We ask especially for the anonymous ones that came in this Sunday. Whatever their needs are, Father, we ask that you bless them and that you guide them and you strengthen them. We ask that you be with those that we have mentioned specifically tonight. We ask that you be with Reuben and Sandra, with Laura, with Marie, with April, and with Sandy, and so many others that we could mention, Father, that we are either not mindful of at the moment or we have just failed to mention tonight. God, whatever the case is, whatever the case may be, you are the God of all who seek you. And God, we ask that you help us to seek you more fully, that in spite of our weakness, in spite of our struggles, you help us to seek first your kingdom and your righteousness, because we know if we do that, all things will be added to us. Bless us always. In Christ we pray. Amen.
You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until he comes. There's no foe that can defeat us when we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. I was sinking deep in sin, far from the peaceful shore. Very deeply stained within, thinking to rise no more. But the master of the sea heard my despairing cry. From the waters lifted me, now safe am I. Lord lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me, and love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me. All my heart to him I give, ever to him I'll cling. In his blessed presence live, ever his praises sing. And love so mighty and so true merits my soul's best song. Faithful, loving service to him belongs. Let's sing it. Love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me. When nothing else could help, ready? Love lifted me.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get rolling here. William, would you mind getting those doors in the back, please? Thank you. All right, well, welcome back to our discussion of the Synoptics. Before we get started tonight, we're going to be, if you want to go ahead and turn over there, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 8, beginning in verse 28 here in just a moment. But before we do that, I have a little treat for you. I took the opportunity of getting this new note-taking Bible, and if any of you want to come up and this, we're going to kind of dip into what we were talking about before with making your own study Bible. If you weren't in there, my advice to you was don't buy a study Bible, because don't buy somebody else's notes to be in your Bible. You can use study Bibles. If you use one, that's great, and if it's good for you, great. My personal opinion on it is that I can keep my. If I want a commentary, I'll keep it separate from my Bible. But it doesn't mean I don't like study Bibles. It just means I like making my own. And this year for my anniversary present, which is on Saturday, by the way, Stephanie got me this really cool new Bible where it's called an interleaf version. I might have shown a few of you a different version of this before, but every other page is blank, which is pretty cool in the whole Bible. Oh, you got one? We're in Matthew 8. I just saw Carolyn waving a Bible and said, hey, we're twins. But I did take that. I was taking some notes in it about this class, and I have a little bit of a list here for you. It's double-sided. But what we have here, if you want to add it to your Bible, it's not notes, it's just a list. Make your own notes. But this is, I've called it triplicate, the table is called Triplicate Parallels in the Synoptics. This is show you both sides. This is every single occurrence in Matthew, Mark, and Luke with references for all three where they interlock. So these are the stories that are covered in all three Synoptics. If you want to have that, if that would be something of interest to you, I've already put it in my Bible. Maybe you might want to put it in yours. I have these. Let me kind of split them up here. I got 50 of these bad boys. So what we can do is I'll just hand these to Sean on this side, and you guys can pass them out if you want one. And then we'll go over here with this half. And if one side runs out, we'll try to make more. If you didn't get, if we pass all these out and you didn't get one, I don't think that'll happen. But if that does happen, let me know and I can print you out some more. Okay, so we are in Matthew 8, where last week we talked about another synoptic story of Jesus calming the storm. Of Jesus standing at the prow of the boat on the Sea of Galilee after he finishes preaching and decides to sail to the other side. The storm rises up, they're going to sink, and they wake him, afraid of fearing for their lives. I would imagine not waking him to miraculously calm the storm, but rather so that he too could man a bucket. But instead, what Jesus does is he rebukes them for the littleness of their faith by going to the prow of the boat and saying three words. Remember what the three words are? Peace, be still. In case you're wondering, I didn't mention this last week. Mentioned it to a few of you after. Peace, be still is New Testament for, hey, shut up. That's what it means. It actually says that he rebukes the wind and the waves, and they obey him. Then the disciples look at each other and famously look at each other filled with fear, not from the storm, but look with fear at Jesus and say to themselves in terror, as Mark will point out, and being filled with great fear, they ask a question. You remember what the question they ask is amongst themselves? Because they dare not bring it up to Jesus. Who is this that the wind and the waves obey him? So let's talk about a little bit of geography before we move into the next section, because the next section, beginning here in Matthew 8, verse 28, is immediately following the events on the Sea of Galilee. So the storm happens on Galilee. Jesus calms the storm. They are in transit across the Sea of Galilee, and they land on the other side. So if they are sailing across the Sea of Galilee from the area of Capernaum, where Peter is from, and where Peter grew up fishing on the Sea of Galilee, that is in kind of the, leaning more north than west, but the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee. So that's for me. So for you, it would be over here. The northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee. So Jesus was probably preaching somewhere along that shoreline. And then they decide to sail southeast to the other side in a region typically referred to as the Decapolis. Now, just based on the name, why do you think it was called the Decapolis? I'm going to emphasize the start of that word, the Decapolis. Say again? Headless people? No. Their kappas didn't get detated, as I once heard on The Office. In my D&D game, we called that getting head and shouldered. Say again? 10 cities, yeah. Why is it called the Pentagon? Because it has what? Penta, it has 5 sides. Okay? Decapolis is called Decapolis because it is a region comprised of roughly 10 settlements or cities that are largely Gentile settlements. Now, this is kind of like a safe haven. The Latin name there, Decapolis, should kind of tell you where this region comes from. It is a product of the Roman occupation of Judea and Palestine, the Palestinian region, Judea, and then, of course, what used to be Israel, but is now Samaria, okay, in this time. And then north above that, we have the Sea of Galilee. Now, they're sailing across. It's about, by boat, if they were rowing, this couldn't have been fun, but by boat, it's roughly a 8-mile straight line from that region down to Decapolis. 8 miles doesn't seem a lot to us when we're in a car, but if you had to row that, well, that could be a little bit difficult. But it's better than walking, because walking around the circumference of the Sea of Galilee, it's about 16 miles to do that. So you split the difference and you get on the boat, right? Would you rather walk for 16 miles or row for 8? It's kind of up to you. I can see arguments for both. Now, they are sailing to the other side, and they land in what Matthew refers to as the country of the Gadarenes. Does everybody have Gadarenes in verse 28? Or does anybody have a different word? So I'm going to read it from ESV. And when he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarenes. Does anybody have a word other than Gadarenes? Does anybody have Gerasenes? Okay, Gerasenes, okay. We're going to see a little bit of interchanging here in terms of, listen, so we're talking about the prospect of taking a town or a region or an area that is named probably in Latin because of its Roman origins, and then translating that name into Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and then probably amongst their speaking, but also translating it for this copy into Greek, right? And then that into English. Is there going to be some variation there because of that? Guys like Bart Ehrman or other non-believing textual critics might say that is an inconsistency. That shows that the Bible isn't consistent or it contradicts itself. No, it's just the fact that there are multiple ways to say it. For example, I refer to the city in Louisiana, the capital of Louisiana, as New Orleans. But if you go down there, do they call it that? What do they call it? Nolans, right? Or Nola, okay? That's just kind of what we're saying. It's just normal human speech. In fact, I would argue that the fact that those things are in the Bible ups its legitimacy instead of downgrades it. But look here. So they land here. This is, again, remember, immediately following what happened out in the middle of the sea, right, with the storm. They land here. It is after dark, and they land here. And what does Matthew say happens? He says, 2 demon-possessed men met him coming out of the tombs, so fierce that no one could pass that way. Coming out of the what? Wait a minute. So you're telling me we have a near-death experience in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. We think we're going to die. Then Jesus stands up and with 3 words removes the storm from existence and calms the sea. To the point to where it's such a display of raw divine power that we are now afraid of him. And then when we finally land, it's in the middle of the night, and we land in a graveyard. We land in a graveyard. And then out of that graveyard comes running 2 demon-possessed dudes that are so terribly demon-possessed that no one can get by them. Willie? It's possible, but to them, caves were tombs. It was, so the Roman, okay, so here's the thing. Decapolis certainly had a Jewish population, definitely did have a Jewish population. They were probably not the most faithful Jewish people in the world. Certainly not as conservative or orthodox as the Jews, say, living in Jerusalem would have been. But Jewish custom and practice still would have been present in the region, and some of the others would have adopted it. Now, it wasn't uncommon. Romans did bury their dead, but some of the cultures of the region also burned their dead. But the common Jewish practice, as we see with Jesus' own tomb, is to dig out a hole or in the side of a rock face, chisel one out, and then move a stone in front of it. So I would call that a cave, but tomb is probably, I think tomb is appropriate here. That yes, they are in a region filled with dead bodies. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. The word Decapolis does not appear the word Decapolis does not appear in any of the synoptics, or John for that matter. But we do know from history, we know that was the region this was in. So there's kind of like that's just from looking it up in a map. If you go home and get on Google, or if you have one in your library, I would highly recommend a good Bible dictionary or a concordance. I can show you a few if you don't have it. It is mentioned in there. That is the region. From history, we know that was the region where there was a stable, large population of Gentiles living within the borders of what you and I would call Israel. Okay, I'm just giving you some geographical details there. But the best what they call it is either as Matthew calls it. This would have been within the Decapolis, because Decapolis was not. Think of it, Decapolis more as a region than a city, because Decapolis means 10 cities, and that these are largely Gentile settlements within the region. And we do know that he is definitely in. Those of you who are familiar with this story, there is one major proof that he is in a Gentile region when this happens, and what is it? Say again? They're herding pigs. Do Jews herd pigs? No, they do not. They are not kosher. They do not herd them. They do not keep them in any form of animal husbandry. So, but Gentiles do. There would have been Romans living there, Greeks living there, and then also kind of neo-Canaanites living there as well. Okay, but yes, this would have been tombs. I do think that it is appropriate to call it tombs. That is something that all three Gospels seem to agree on uniformly. But it says that these demon-possessed men were so fierce that no one could pass that way. What do you think of when you think of that? So when you imagine what Matthew is describing here, they are so fierce that no one could get by them. What kind of imagery do you have in your head about these guys? Say again? Yeah. Ask your question. I am unafraid. I'm sorry, I just nerded out real bad for you there. But yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Scary looking. Stephanie goes to Stephanie. If there's one thing Stephanie loves, it is a haunted house. Harmony and Lauren will back me up on that. She loves a haunted house. That's her favorite thing to do every fall. She probably think last year I think she went to 4. She'll probably go to just as many, if not more, this year, because Stephanie likes walking through those things where it's all kind of spooky and people popping out at her going, "Ah!" like that. That doesn't bother me. Does that do haunted houses freak out anybody here in the room? Okay, Larry, you don't like them? Stephanie gets a kick out of the thrill of it. I don't feel one way about them or the other. They don't bother me. I'm that jerk customer they don't like to get, where they come at me and they go, "Ah!" and I just start, keep drinking my soda. Look at them, no reaction, right? But I love my wife and I go with her. I got to tell you, if this happened to me, because this isn't a haunted house, this is the real deal, I'd probably scream like a Girl Scout if this happened. Because these two, I would imagine in my head, wild, grizzly Adam dudes, right? We're going to get more details about their appearance in some of the other coverage of this story. But they come running out and they're violent. They are violent. They are a terror in the region. Now, let's look at what happens before we get some other accounts. We're going to get some more detail in Mark and Luke, but especially in Mark. But I do want to point out what happens here so that we can compare. So they are these fierce guys. They're terrifying. Verse 29, and behold, they cried out, "What have you to do with us, O Son of God?" Here's what I want everybody to do. I want everybody, as we go through these 3 stories and this story in triplicate, I want you to pay special attention. If you're taking notes, make a note of it. Pay special attention to what they refer to, for how they refer to Jesus. Here Matthew has them call him what? Son of God. So if I were taking notes, I would put Matthew, Son of God. Okay? We'll talk more about that in a second, but just keep a thumb there. What have you to do with us, Son of God? Verse 29. Have you come here to torment us before the time? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Okay. So we have this little bit of an issue where when we read a Jesus story, we have a tendency, because we always do this, it's called character bias, okay? We have a tendency to read ourselves into the story, and when we're reading ourselves into a story, who do we typically read ourselves into? Which character in a story do we typically read ourselves into? A secondary character? Who do we have a tendency to read ourselves into? So if you're reading a Harry Potter book, who are you imagining being? Harry. You don't want to be. Nobody wants to be Ron. Ron doesn't want to be Ron. You want to be Harry, right? If you're reading Lord of the Rings, you don't imagine yourself as Sam. You're Frodo, or you're Gandalf, or you're Aragorn. You're the main character of that scene, right? Okay? So when we're reading a Jesus story, who do we have a tendency to read ourselves in as? Well, Jesus. We do, right? But don't make that mistake here. Don't read yourself into being Jesus in this story. Read yourself into being not the demon-possessed guys, not Jesus, but who? Say again? No. I would pick one of the 12 disciples. I'd pick somebody like Peter, James, or John, who are riding shotgun when this happens. Because remember, we were just out in the boat. We're terrified of Jesus. We're looking at him kind of, like we're keeping our head on a swivel around Jesus now. I'm like, who's this guy? Okay, don't make him angry, don't make him angry, don't make him angry, right? And then all of a sudden, these two dudes run out of the middle of the... Okay, immediately we're what? When we see them, immediately what do we fear? We go, ah! We're afraid of them. Then what do? They run up to Jesus not to attack us, but then they see Jesus, and what do? They plead with him. And then they ask him this question. Think about hearing this question, because I think what you can immediately just go ahead and get under your belt. I don't think that there would have to be much convincing amongst the 12 that these dudes have demons in them, right? It's pretty obvious that these guys have demons in them, okay? So either they're recognizing them as demons or just crazy people, but I would imagine demons, and then they run up to Jesus, and then you hear the scary demon dude say to Jesus, what? Have you come to torment us, what? Before the time? What time? That's a scary sentence to hear. I'm like, whoa, what are you talking about now? Torment us before the time? What does that question imply? Say again? There's a schedule that I didn't know about, that God has not let me, that God has not let me in on. Say, what time? But not only that, but these demon dudes, demoniacs as older versions might call them, they expect torment from Jesus. Everybody is afraid of the demon-possessed men. Who are the demon-possessed men afraid of? They're afraid of Jesus. And you go, wait a minute. I'm with Jesus. I'm with Jesus. Stephanie had a really good friend growing up, kind of an older brother figure. I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm really not. It's just kind of a statement of fact. In fact, it's gotten me in trouble before when I should have been intimidated. But typically in my life, there's never really been... I've never had a problem being intimidated by other men. Do you know what I mean by that? That I've never been physically intimidated, socially intimidated, or just afraid of another guy. Typically, that has never been in most circumstances that I've been. And I've been in the room with some pretty scary, nasty dudes. But it's just I don't know if it's not really a confidence thing or a pride thing. It's just kind of a personality quirk of mine, I guess. But she had this older brother figure who was about 5 years older than she was, named Evan, that loved Stephanie as a little sister and would have, thrown himself in front of a train for her at a moment's notice. And Evan was the first man I had ever really been in a room with that I thought to myself, this guy would kill me. There wouldn't be a fight. It would just be Evan with Jarrod's blood all over him, right? And here's one of the reasons why I was intimidated by him. Evan was a big dude. He was about 6'8". He looked like I imagined, a shorter Goliath looking, right? And one time, and Evan was a sweet man and a loving guy. He's passed on now. That's why I'm using past tense, unfortunately. Rest in peace, brother, because I did love him. But Evan had a temper. And Stephanie told me one time when she was out with Evan, with the group, including Evan, and Evan got really, really, really violently upset. And they were out on the street, and what Evan did, imagine this for a second. Evan walked up to a stop sign. You know, the post is in the sidewalk, right? Evan grabbed, in his adrenaline, he grabbed the pole and pulled it out of the concrete. If he can pull a steel pole out of concrete, dry concrete, what could he do to my head if he got his hands on it? I mean, crush it like a melon, right? It's kind of one of those, and then at our wedding, at a reception, Evan was, of course, there. He was an usher, I believe. And he came up to me at the, what is every groom hear at a wedding reception from somebody, from at least one person, typically a dad or a brother? If you hurt her, I'll find you, right? Evan's hugging on Stephanie, telling her how he's got tears in his eyes. He's telling her how beautiful she is, and you know, Stephanie's only 5. She's 5'3" in heels, okay. So there's like this huge gap of height between, and Evan's having to like bend over, you know, to hug her, and then he comes up to me and says, "Jarrod, congratulations." He's got this big bright smile on his face. He grabs my hand and I shake his hand. I say, "Thanks, Evan. It means a lot." And then he stops shaking and he squeezes my hand a little bit. And he pulls me in close and he says, "If you hurt her, I'll kill you." And I laughed it off nervously. He said, "Not kidding." And I went, "Great." We were friends, but he meant it. It's kind of one of those moments where you realize I'm in the room with somebody whose power I can't even touch. Imagine being Peter. Would you say Peter's a confident guy? To his detriment at times, right? Who's the loudest apostle? Peter. Peter, as we joke around, Peter has foot and mouth disease. What I mean is he opens his mouth and his foot goes in it, right? I heard a Christian apologist recently say, "I don't call Peter the disciple, I call him the disciple," because he keeps saying stupid things. He's a confident dude. Is Peter ready, willing, and able to have a fight? Yeah, ask the Sanhedrin guard that comes to arrest Jesus in the Mount of Olives. What does Peter do to that guy? Cuts his ear off, right? Let's go. Remember all the bluster Peter has in the Passion Week? "Lord, I'll die with you," right? "Let's fight the Romans." Yeah, woo! But imagine being Peter and his confidence. And then hearing that big scary dudes, come running out of the tombs, and then they run up to Jesus and they say, "Don't torment us." And you're standing next to Jesus, because I imagine Peter is often standing next to Jesus, and he's going, "Huh? Who are you?" It's the same kind of sentiment as that last question previously. Who is this that even the wind and the waves obey them? But this idea of do not torment us before the time. There's torment coming, and we expect it. We don't want it early. That means that these demons know exactly who Jesus is, and they are not willing to mess with him. They want nothing to do with him. What's incredible is they don't hide. Don't you think they would hide? I mean, guys, I think that's Jesus. I think that's Jesus. Get down, get down, get down. They are so afraid of Jesus, they don't even bother hiding. They come running out to him because they don't want him to find them hiding from him. Then look what else happens. He says, verse 30, "Now a herd of many pigs," we're going to get a number on that in one of the accounts, "but a herd of many pigs was feeding at some distance from them. And the demons begged him, saying, if you cast us out, send us away into the herd of pigs. Okay, here's a question. Here's a question maybe you don't get asked a lot about this story. They say, if you cast us out, send us into the pigs. What's interesting about the formation of that statement? Let's just think about that request for a moment. What does that request imply? Say again? That he might not? Okay. Say again? That's their best what, Sean? Meaning they have more than one option? You think anybody in the room, maybe John or James or Philip or Andrew, were going, into the pigs? Where else could he cast them? What does that tell you? Jesus doesn't just tell them to go. Jesus doesn't just tell them where to go. He could also tell them what? Where? And there are other options than the pigs. Verse 32, he said to them, I really like the way Matthew writes this, with as minimalistic dialogue from Jesus as possible. So far, what has Jesus said? Nothing. He hasn't introduced himself. He hasn't greeted them. He hasn't even looked at them and gone, what do you want? He's just got this image of Jesus just eyeballing them. Verse 32. First dialogue we have from Jesus in this story. And he said to them, go. How many words? One. So they came out and went into the pigs. And behold, the whole herd rushed down the steep bank and into the sea and drowned in the waters. The herdsmen fled. And going into the city, they told everything, especially what had happened to the demon-possessed men. And behold, all the city came out to meet Jesus. You wanted to go Monty Python with it, Sean? They all came out to meet Jesus. They saw that the demon-possessed men were gone, and there was much rejoicing. Yay. Is that what it says? They had a big party for Jesus, thanking him for banishing the demon-possessed men from the region. Woohoo! Is that what happens? Matthew writes, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their region. We've just spent however long being afraid of these men. Now we're afraid of Jesus. Let's go over to Luke's account. Go ahead.
So what happened to the demons?
They went into the pigs.
So when the pigs died, so
Yeah.
what happened to the demons?
That's a great question, Steve. You'll get to ask Jesus that yourself one day. No, I would imagine, as best as I can give, I could only give you an informed guess here. Killing the flesh would not kill the demon. So they pulled the eject button, or they pushed the eject button. They went out into the ether to seek who else they might devour. But they got out of Dodge. Say again? Yeah, maybe fish. We know they can go in animals. Why not fish? Okay? Yeah, they're non-corporeal beings, meaning they have no physical form. They are, we could get into the whole issue of are they Are they fallen angels? Are they some other entity? I lean toward fallen angels. Don't know that for certain because I'm not the Bible isn't entirely clear on that. And if you want to get more clear information on that, or at least information claiming to be more clear on that, you have to go extra biblical. And I'm a Bible guy, so we're going to stick with the Word of God on this one. They would probably be invisible. Willie? Say again? Yeah. 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 Well, they went into the water in the swine, and then the swine died. Well, they started off in the swine. Yeah. 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 I'm not gonna Willie. I'm not gonna stand up here and try to defend the idea. Try to defend the idea of or argue against the idea of demons being disobedient to God. But I think they thought. They probably had a conversation amongst themselves, whisper, 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 which is silly because that doesn't work against God. They probably thought it was a loophole because then they could kill the swine and get out of there. But I think the implication of that is they were trying to get as far away from Jesus as physically possible. They don't even want to be in the same zip code as Jesus. Yeah. Azazel. Yeah, the day of Atonement. Leviticus 16. Yep. Yep, a little bit. A little bit. That was more of some believe that the Azazel goat, the scapegoat, to be demon possessed, and that there's a demon called Azazel. That's more of a Jewish folklore idea than it is a biblical concept. Azazel just means scapegoat. I think it was just a goat, but it's possible. I mean, I'm not gonna break the bank on betting on that one. But in our last, we got about 10 more minutes here, and there is some differences I want to point out. Luke 8, starting in verse 26. This is Luke's account of the same story. When they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee, opposite, northwest to southeast. Then they, by the way, Willie, that's another reason why we know this to be the Decapolis, is because Luke gives geographical, pointing across. And if you draw a straight line between Galilee down to the southeast, you hit Decapolis. The region of Decapolis. Verse 27, when Jesus had stepped out onto land, there met him a man. From the city who had demons. Wait a minute. How many men? How many men did Matthew say met him? Throw out your Bibles, guys. This is a contradiction. What do you think? How many was it? One or two? Let's try to harmonize this, because people will point this out. Well, here's a contradiction. Matthew said there were two demon-possessed men in the Gerasenes. I'm in Luke 8. Luke 8, verse 26. So which was it? Luke says one man, Matthew says two. What's the answer? There you go. The answer to the question is yes. Now, we believe Mark is also going to mention one, and he's not only going to mention one, he's going to name him. Now, there were two men. We can take Matthew's account as factual. There were two men present at this exorcism, if you want to call it that. Matthew, I believe, wanting to show the power of Jesus over demons, because he is emphasizing what? He's emphasizing that the demons are subservient to the Son of God. And he only says one word to them, and out they come. So he mentions both. Whereas I think both Mark, especially Mark, and Luke want to focus more on the individual who is healed. And perhaps his belief after healing that maybe the other guy didn't have. That they narrow the focus in. This is what we call telescoping, okay? Where telescoping is, using a telescope allows us, you can like turn a telescope and adjust the focus. It'll allow us to either back up and see the whole picture, or do what? Zoom in and narrow. What we're seeing in Matthew and in Mark and Luke is a narrowing of the focus, which does not discount the fact that Matthew tells us it wasn't one man, it was two. Because what Mark and Luke do not say is that Jesus only exorcised one man. It just says that he exorcised one man. And guess what? That's true. He just also happened to do another at the same time.
When you're reading about Mark,
Yeah.
Matthew, 91% of Mark is in Matthew.
Yeah.
So Matthew's getting his information.
Yeah.
His information from Mark.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
we tell the
With somewhat different focus. Yeah.
story 4 or 5 times, it's different time.
Yeah. Yeah. But not only that, if you'll notice here, if you have that sheet I gave you, you'll notice I start with Mark. It's not Matthew, Mark, Luke. It's Mark, Matthew, Luke. And the reason why is if you look at the references in Mark that are triplicate, it's almost every chapter. Whereas if you look at Matthew and Luke, there's a pretty big gap. In fact, you'll notice here that there is a gap, but in Luke, down here to number 29, Jesus again foretells of his death and resurrection. There is a jump between that story and the next story between Luke 9 and Luke 18. That means Luke is largely original for 9 chapters. Isn't that interesting? Okay, but here, for sake of time, real quick, because I do want to get to a few differences. Okay, when Jesus stepped out on the land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time, he had worn no clothes. Great. That's a detail that Matthew left out. Not only are these dudes scary, not only are they willing and violent and able, they're naked. Does that make them more scary or less scary? What would you rather deal with? A clothed homeless guy or a naked homeless guy? I'm going clothes. Who's with me? Okay, all right. So there were no clothes, and he had not lived in a house, but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him with a loud voice. What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? What did he call him in Matthew? Son of God. What does he call him in Luke? Son of the Most High God. I beg you, do not torment me, for he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of him. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. By the way, desert doesn't mean desert necessarily. It means desolate place, where there are no people. Right? How strong is this guy? He can break chains. Scary dude. Luke and Mark both name him. Let's look here at verse 30. Also, Luke and Mark seem to, and we can just kind of raise this point and maybe cover it next week because we are running out of time. How much dialogue does Jesus have in Matthew? One word, go. Okay. Jesus has a similar kind of sparse dialogue here. He says more than that. But it also seems to indicate that he had already said something to this dude. And what had he already said? What is it he already said? Come out of him. And they don't. You want to talk about pigs, Willie? Talk about that one. I mean, he said, come out, and they go, wait. Hold on. My answer to that would be Jesus could have forced him out the first time, but he is stretching. For maybe to teach a lesson here. I'm not going to worry about it. Jesus can do what he wants to do. Amen? Jesus, verse 30, asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Oh. Why doesn't that say hell? Does anybody have it say hell in verse 31? Anybody have hell? Does King James have hell? I have abyss in verse 31. Say again? Into the deep. Into the deep. That's because it's not hell. It's not hell. Abyss doesn't mean hell. It means the nothing. Cast them out of this world is what it means. Verse 32, now a large herd of pigs were feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let him enter these, so he gave them permission. And then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told the city and in the country. Then people went out to see what had happened. Then they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all of the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." And he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. So, for sake of time, Mark's account is largely the same. Mark has probably the most significant account. I want to read just you a section about this man. Verse 3 of Mark 5. Here's what Mark says about him. He lived among the tombs, and no one there could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he had wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. Okay, so he's strong, he's violent, he's naked, and now he's what? He's bleeding. This guy isn't even a hat trick. He's not even a triple threat. He's all. Does anybody want to even remotely deal with this guy? No. I don't. This guy is a whole lot of. He's 8 pounds of crazy in a 6-pound bag, right? We don't want to deal with him. Real quickly as we close, and crying out with a loud voice, he comes out screaming, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" I will only point this out because now we've kind of gotten I want to leave you with a significant point. You're going to hear a lot from modern skepticism today. You're going to hear a lot from modern skepticism today that Jesus, nowhere in the synoptics, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, declares himself, is he declared to be God in the flesh. Not a single time. That's what the skeptics like Bart Ehrman will say, and Alex O'Connor on YouTube will say. And they'll say that it wasn't until later in the Gospel of John, which they believe to be a 2nd or 3rd century production, even though it's a 1st century production, to where, John starts off with what? In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word what? Was God. That is a later invention that John came up with that Matthew, Mark, and Luke would not have supported. If that is the case, what is he doing calling him Son of God? And not only Son of God, Son of the Most High God. Who alone would they fear? Do they fear men? Clearly not. Because men keep trying to put shackles on this dude, and what does he keep doing? Snapping those bad boys in half. But he's afraid of him some Jesus, isn't he? Why? Because Jesus is a man, but not only a man. This is a clear depiction of Jesus' divinity in the synoptics. And if anybody ever says that to you, take them to Mark 5. Sound good? If you have any more questions you want to ask me about this story, because I know demon possession is a hot topic, come on up and ask me. If you didn't get a chart, if you'd like one, I've got a few extra if you want to come up and grab one. Thanks for being here tonight. God bless.